Hey y'all, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my channel. I just realized I said y'all. Clearly I am from Texas, even though I might have a weird Australian and or European accent or say phrases sometimes. So today I'm going to be reviewing, or just talking about my personal opinions, I guess not really reviewing, a series that I've recently been getting really into, which is a Scandinavian crime fiction series, and it is the Department Q series by Jussi Adler-Olsen. So here are the first three books in the series. So it's The Keeper of Lost Causes is book number 1, and I read this one first like a couple weeks ago, and y'all, it was just, oh my goodness, it was unreal. Like, I finished this in a couple of days. I could not put it down. So basically the premise behind this series is it's just sort of this like tag team. So it's Carl and his sidekick Assad that are investigating cold cases. So you kind of find out, like in the first book, Carl, the main detective, he has recently been involved in an accident, and one of his partners was killed, and then one of his other partners was paralyzed from the neck down. And so he's sort of getting back on his feet and seeing a psychologist and sort of dealing with all of these issues. And they don't really know what to do with him because his team's sort of MIA at the moment. So they kind of stick him down in the basement and are just like, yeah, we've got some funding, go over some cold cases, like, see if you can sort of wrap any of these up. And they give him this guy Assad to kind of work with him, and originally he's kind of supposed to just be like the handyman and clean up and kind of, be a secretary or whatever. But Carl realizes that this guy Assad actually has a lot of important insights, and so it's kind of funny because they make up this really great team, and Assad's first language is not English, and so a lot of sort of the humor in this series comes from his little colloquialisms that he doesn't quite understand and everything. But you kind of also as well, like throughout the series, you don't really realize, I guess, like what his background is, and that kind of all comes out in the later books. But anyway, so the first book I read a couple weeks ago now, and mystery was just crazy. Like, it kept me guessing until the very end, and it sort of flip-flops back and forth. So it's this woman who's, I think, in her late 20s, early 30s. She's kind of like a low-level politician, and she gets kidnapped, and she's left in this room. Like, nothing is in this room. She's left in this room in the dark for a year. And so it flip-flops back and forth between her perspective and then Carl's perspective, sort of in present day. And he gets this cold case about this missing politician, and he finds out a few kind of fishy, funny things that are going on with that. And so he sort of is like, oh yeah, whatever, well, I might as well like look into it. So he's looking into it, and they're sort of figuring out all of these clues, and she is in the dark for a year. And then all of a sudden at the end of 1 year, saying, congratulations, you've made it for a year. We're now going to turn the lights on and increase the atmospheric pressure to like 1 atmosphere or 2 atmospheres or something. So every year, they either turn the lights on or turn the lights off, and she's sort of forced to live in this like torturous way, and there's no communication between her and her captors, and you're sort of like weighing up between why the heck is this happening to her, and oh my gosh, what are they going to do next? So the why Carl was kind of figuring out on the side, and then the what are they going to do next is sort of told through her perspective. And it just kept me on my toes to the very end. Like, I was a little bit, I don't know how believable the kind of why they were keeping her there was, but it's a race to the finish at the end, and Carl's trying to, and you don't know if she's still alive, basically, and Carl's trying to figure out if she's still alive, and it kind of is like her story, and then her story just stops, and then Carl's just keeps going, and so I won't obviously tell you what happens, but it's one of the best thrillers I've read in a while. So after I finished that one, I was really, really keen to pick up the second one because I just love mysteries, and particularly Scandinavian crime fiction. And if you are into crime fiction at all, and you love The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and other books like that, I would highly recommend delving further into the realm of Scandinavian crime fiction. And one of my friends on Instagram, her name is Abby, she has a whole Instagram account and a whole blog website dedicated to reading crime fiction books. And we've talked a little bit because we both have a love of Scandinavian crime fiction. So I would highly recommend you check out her website and or her Instagram if you want to get any more book recommendations. I can't remember how I found this one. I think I just found it in Readings Bookstore, one of the bookstores that I go to here in Melbourne. And the cover just sort of intrigued me. And then I figured out it was like the 6th or 7th book in the series. So I went back and started from the beginning. And so the second book in this series is called Disgrace. I didn't personally quite find it as intriguing as the first one. I kind of thought the plot line was a little bit similar to some Law and Order SVU episodes that I've watched, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. And so it's sort of like this woman, and she's kind of seen to be a bit crazy, and she's going around killing these guys, and that's kind of like one of the main stories. And then Carl is kind of investigating a few of these cold case murders, and they think it's linked to this gang of people that used to go out and just kind of kill people. And so it's sort of all about why they used to go out and kill people, and then what happened to this woman who's like kind of gone crazy. Now, they wrapped the plot up really well, but I just didn't find the overall mystery and overall story to be as intriguing as the first one. So I took a break from the crime fiction a little while after that, and I think I read A Darker Shade of Magic, which I talked about on my first video. And while I was waiting for the second A Darker Shade of Magic book to come in, I went ahead and picked up the third book in the Department Q series, which is called Redemption. And so this one, actually, I thought the plot was as good as the first one. So in this one, in Scotland, so this detective finds this random bottle in the ocean and it kind of looks like there's like something inside, and he just goes back to his office and puts it on his desk, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll worry about that later, and never really follows through on that. Anyway, and a couple of years later, he passes away, and so the woman who takes over his job is clearing out his desk, and she's like, what the heck is this bottle? It looks like there's something inside of it. It kind of looks like it might be blood. Like, what's going on? And so she sends it to the lab, and it turns out to be this message, literally a message in a bottle from these two kids, and it turns out to be written not in English. So they figure out where it's from, and they sending it to Carl and Assad to solve the problem. And he's kind of like, well, I don't know if I can be bothered with this. Can't even read it hardly. And so the first sort of few chapters, they're really trying to decipher this message and trying to figure out what's going on. And once they try to figure out, it's actually like a call for help. And so this boy, they figure out his name was Paul, and he had written a cry for help saying that they had been kidnapped and taken from this bus stop, and this man was holding them hostage, and that he was asking someone to come and save them. And so it's him and his younger brother. And this book was, again, really interesting because kind of like the first one, they sort of have a parallel of what's going on in the crime aspect of it. And then they also have Carl's investigation going on. And so this one, instead of sort of having the victims be the main story like it was in the first book with the woman, it's actually the murderer. And so, the kidnapper. And so it kind of starts out, and you don't know his name, you don't know anything when he kind of like starts out. But these are the stories that really get me, because it's like you know who the killer or the kidnapper or whatever is right at the beginning, but it's slowly revealed throughout the book how he came to be that way, what his background is, and what he's doing. And so this guy sort of lived this whole double life. So you find out he's got a wife, he's got a kid. And his job is he literally kidnaps people and gets the ransom. And so he kidnaps people at the very beginning of the book. And so Carl's trying to solve this cold case. And then he realizes that, hang on, like he finds probably 5 or 6 other cases that are really similar to this. And he realizes, hang on, this guy might be still actually doing this. And it's just fascinating how quickly, but also like how painfully slowly he solves this case, because the whole time you're going, I know who the murderer is, like he's right here, why can you not find him? And like Carl and Assad are just like, oh, one other dead end, like darn, oh, we tried to figure this out and we just couldn't. And the whole time this guy's like got 2 more kids, and it's actually like I think it's, what's the correct term in English class? It's like dramatic irony or whatever, when the reader knows what's happening, but the characters don't know what's happening. And it's actually so frustrating for me reading this book, but it kept me reading it because I just wanted to know in the end that like the killer was going to get caught or whatever, and that Carl and Assad were going to save the day. So I won't give away exactly what happens at the end, but and especially like the background, the plot of this, how the killer came to be, it's kind of got like a religious cult undertone to it. So it's really, really fascinating and really interesting. And if you like crime fiction at all, I would highly, highly recommend this series. And I can't wait. I just actually got the second Dark Shade of Magic book in, A Gathering of Shadows. So that's going to be my next read coming up. So stay tuned.